You've heard of internet high-yield savings banks paying higher interest rates, but should you be putting your hard-earned money into these internet banks? What are the pitfalls? What are the pros and cons of using internet banks? These are questions people ask. I am going to tackle these issues today and give you my take on it. First off, anyone who has subscribed to my channel knows that I have several savings accounts with different internet banks. But that wasn't always the case. Most of us know about traditional brick and mortar banks with local branch offices. We see them everywhere. Today, we use online banking to make deposits, pay our bills, and take care of daily financial business. But since COVID-19 hit in 2020 and the lockdowns, there has been a greater use and demand for online banking than ever before. For many of us, many brick and mortar banks have also become internet banks because of how much we can do online and through banking apps. A lot of people, including myself, like to use the same banks to keep our savings accounts and emergency funds. We do it because it is easy and it's convenient. The biggest issue with using savings accounts with brick and mortar banks is that for many years, savers were not being rewarded by keeping money in the bank. Spenders and buyers were rewarded with low interest rates. They bought homes, investment property, cars, and anything else that you might want that required financing. Earning cash back and point rewards on credit cards were all the rage to encourage you to spend more money. Cheap money was flowing for the last few years. Quite frankly, saving money and frugality fell out of fashion in the age of cheap interest rates. People like my fiance and I are on the frugal side and prefer to have savings and emergency funds. We are not big fans of consumerism and spending money without a good reason. In fact, we have gradually moved towards minimalism. Unlike many people, we were never lured by low interest rates into buying things we already had. We were perfectly happy with the houses and cars we already have. We had savings and emergency funds sit in bank accounts getting paid next to nothing while real estate, cars, groceries, and many other things, the prices surged. In early 2021, T-Mobile Money, a division of Customers Bank, caught my eye through an email notification. They were offering to pay 4% on their checking account for the first $3,000 and a full 1% on any monies above $3,000. I was immediately interested. I made a video about my experience with T-Mobile Money and their 4% payment program. After opening my T-Mobile Money account and reading the fine print, I decided I was not interested in doing the 10 debit transactions per month hoop to earn 4% on the first $3,000. The amount was not worth it. I already had a PenFed cashback credit card that was paying me 2% for every transaction I made. That far exceeded the measly 4% per year they were offering. However, I was interested enough in moving my savings and emergency funds to take advantage of their full 1%. Now, can you believe that? Yes, it was crazy that I was lured by their 1% interest. That is how bad savings interest rates really were. Most people were only getting a few tenths of a percent with their brick and mortar savings account. A full 1% on your savings account was unheard of in 2020 and 2021. It is laughable to look back now that we are in mid-2023 because most of our savings accounts are getting close to 5% APY. T-Mobile Money was my first experience with an internet bank. It gave me encouragement to try other internet banks. By early 2022, the economic environment shifted dramatically. Inflation had taken hold. Prices of everything increased tremendously. Whether it was homes, cars, gasoline, groceries, airfare, or anything else you can think of, prices skyrocketed and it threatened the fabric of the economy. The Federal Reserve was alarmed by the surge of inflation and publicly embarked on a series of blistering interest rate increases in an effort to tame inflation. Looking back, it seemed like every other month the Fed was announcing another interest rate increase. When the Federal Reserve announcement came in March 2022, I knew banks were going to start increasing the interest rates they were paying savers. At long last, savers would start making money on their idle savings and emergency funds. However, which banks was going to offer the best rates was very uncertain. I already had T-Mobile Money paying 1%, but I was definitely on the lookout for better options. Because my fiance was already an account holder at Synchrony, I saw Synchrony paying more interest than T-Mobile Money. So I set up my own account with Synchrony Bank and began moving my savings and emergency funds over. That was my second account with an internet bank, and it wasn't without its hassles. I ran into my first unhappy experience with Synchrony Bank's ID system. That is a story into itself. I made a couple of videos about my ordeals with Synchrony if you want to know more about it. As 2022 progressed, I found Bask Bank. They paid more than Synchrony Bank. In fact, they paid more than any other bank that I found at that time. I was more cautious here because, unlike Synchrony Bank, I had never heard of Bask Bank before. I opened up an account in fall of 2022 and made a small deposit. This became my third account with an internet bank. It became evident that if I wanted better returns, internet banks were the ones paying them, not the traditional name brand banks. The 3 internet bank accounts at that time gave me a basis to compare features from one internet bank to another. I was kicking the tires of all 3 banks. There is no question that higher interest rates I wanted were with the internet banks. But I also noticed the stark differences with how these 3 internet banks operated. They were both good and bad. Interest rates matter, but so do other features that I don't hear many people talk about. And I'm going to cover some of the quirks and annoyances of internet banks. But before I do that, one of my quirks of my cat Lexi is that in almost every video she tells me to ask you to swipe that like button to help YouTube spread this video with other people who care about earning higher returns through high yield savings account. However, she gets an extra treat if you subscribe to this channel to get notifications to stay up to date. Bank marketing websites typically advertise interest rates they pay, but they rarely cover the fine print. You also don't find out about usability issues until you are inside. You can never know what the customer experience will be like with an internet bank until you go through the motions of setting up a new account and transferring some money into it. As of this video, I now have accounts with 7 internet banks for the purpose of holding savings and emergency funds. I don't use these banks for anything else. They are T-Mobile Money, Synchrony Bank, Bask Bank, LendingClub, Primis Bank, Newtek Bank, and Vio Bank. You might be asking, why do I have 7 internet bank accounts? It's partly because when I open a new account, I generally don't like closing them if I don't have to. You never know when you might need that account again. I have always been a believer in having multiple banking options. I try to never let any single bank hold me hostage, which is why I have several bank accounts. I always have somewhere else to go if I need to move my money. But the other reason I now have so many accounts is because I'm a financial YouTuber who watches and reports on the ongoings of internet banks, especially those that offer high yield savings accounts. These 7 bank accounts so far allows me to keep a pulse on high yield savings trends and the overall internet bank industry. You get a lot more insights of how banks work when you become their customer. You can more easily separate marketing fluff from what really happens when you have your own account. If you subscribe to my channel, you can expect that I am going to give you my unvarnished views of anything I report on. I have no issues calling out BS on any bank because I am not dependent on any one bank. I won't hesitate to move money if I don't like what I see. Because I prefer accounts with low or no minimum balances, it doesn't take much for me to be a bank customer. For many accounts, I keep a minimal amount to keep an account alive. This leads me to my first point. If you are interested in an internet bank, my suggestion is to do the following. First, with any internet bank you have not heard of, you should know that the name of some internet banks is not how they are listed with the FDIC website. The FDIC maintains a list of banks eligible for $250,000 protection for account holders. For example, the back-end bank of T-Mobile Money is actually Customers Bank. The back-end bank of Bask Bank is actually Texas Capital Bank. The back-end bank of Vio Bank is actually MidFirst Bank. Internet brand bank names don't always match the brick-and-mortar operation behind the internet branding. If you don't find the name of the back-end bank, you won't be able to find the listing on the FDIC website. Generally, most internet banks care about their credibility and reputation. They will generally disclose their true association on their website. This is not a foolproof way to avoid dealing a potentially fake bank, but making sure that there is clear disclosure of the back-end bank's name helps a lot. You can then confirm that the bank name is listed with the FDIC website. If you decide to open an account with an internet bank, you can expect a detailed application and an aggressive ID verification process. In a brick-and-mortar bank, it is easier to verify who you are. A bank employee meets you, has you fill out an application on the spot, and they ask for your ID. They verify you and your ID right there. There are also security cameras everywhere. The chances of dealing with a fraudulent person is much lower with in-person transactions. However, with internet banks, they are almost entirely reliant on an electronic application and verification process. Every internet bank is a little different, but generally you need to have your social security number and photo ID available to start. There is a general presumption you are on the grid with credit reporting agencies. However, if you are off the grid or don't exist with credit reporting agencies, you might have a tough time signing up and getting through the ID verification process. Most new account registrations go through at least a 3-part process. You submit your personal information such as your formal name, home address, phone number, and other contact information for the ID verification process. You are generally asked to set up an initial transfer account. You provide a routing and account number of your existing bank to make your first electronic deposit. This account information is also verified. There is a general presumption you already have at least one bank account, but that is not always the case. If you are cautious with setting up a new account with an internet bank, I highly recommend just making a small deposit of $20. Generally, I am willing to consider almost any internet bank as long as they don't have a minimum balance and they allow me to deposit $50 as the initial deposit. I start with $50 to get the account open. I want to try things out before I transfer more money in. Upon approval, there is generally a boarding process for you to gain online banking access after the application and ID verification process. You should know that internet banks are intentionally vague as to what they are looking for to detect fraud. It has been my experience the more stable residential address history you have and a stable phone number registered to your name, the more likely you will succeed in opening up a new account with an internet bank. There's a lot of online fraud and internet banks are understandably nervous about it. Although my information has generally been stable for many years, I still had a few issues with Synchrony Bank early on. Even when I was approved, I still encountered ID verifications due to an outdated phone number they had. It took a few months before the matter cleared up. I complained about this on a video and Synchrony Bank somehow got wind of my YouTube video. They sent me an unsolicited explanatory letter. You can find out more about how Synchrony confronted me. I will provide a link in the description below. The next issue may or may not be important to you depending on how old you are. That is the issue of setting up POD beneficiaries. POD stands for payable on death. It allows you to easily designate beneficiaries who get your money when you die. Unfortunately, not every internet bank makes it easy to set up and designate POD beneficiaries. I hate the paper-based POD beneficiary forms I used to deal with. I have gotten used to setting up POD beneficiaries electronically. It's what I prefer nowadays. For example, I love Synchrony and Bask Bank's approach. They make it very easy to set up POD beneficiaries. I like the way they do it electronically, and it's a big selling point to me as far as I'm concerned. As a side mention, Bank of America is not an internet bank, but I love how easy it is to electronically set up a POD beneficiary there also. I made a video on that for those of you who have Bank of America accounts. Now with LendingClub and Newtek Bank, you electronically fill out and sign a PDF DocuSign document. They aren't quite as easy as Synchrony or Bask Bank, but I can live with it. T-Mobile, on the other hand, doesn't allow any beneficiaries, which is a major strike. That means you never want to keep too much money with T-Mobile money, as far as I'm concerned. If you die, your account will be forced into probate. And for those of you who don't know, probate is a time-consuming and sometimes expensive legal process to dispose of your assets after you die. You want to avoid it wherever you can. Your loved ones will appreciate that. Having bank accounts that allow easy setup of POD beneficiaries is something your loved ones will appreciate you for. Now with Vio Bank, they want me to notarize my POD beneficiary document, which is still sitting in a folder. That means I won't be transferring more money into that account until I get around to having my POD form notarized. In Vio Bank's case, because of their poor execution of the POD beneficiaries feature, people like me are going to be hesitant or reluctant to transfer a lot of money into that account. That is because I have many internet bank options at my disposal. I know some people don't care or want to think about death, but I think it's an important issue when dealing with any bank. Another thing you won't find out until you get inside a new internet bank account is that it can be difficult to set up new transfer and external accounts. For some people who only have a couple of bank accounts, having one transfer account is more than sufficient. For someone like me who has multiple accounts at different banks, I want the option and flexibility to set up different transfer and external accounts. Bask Bank, for example, only allowed me one transfer account for the first 90 days. I was later allowed to set up additional external accounts. The immediate approval system for an external account of every internet bank that I've seen is spotty and almost never works. I almost always have to go through the alternative setup, which takes a few days. Based on your request, an internet bank can make a couple of small electronic deposits into your transfer account. You then have to verify those deposit amounts a few days later to get full approval to get full money transfer access. Another issue you will have to decide on is whether paper statements are important to you. Most banks are pushing their customers to accept electronic statements. I'm still old school and I do like paper statements. It is a periodic reminder to me of an account's existence. Savings accounts tend to have a low amount of activity. Because of this, I am not hardcore about needing paper statements, but I must say, I do enjoy that feature. Synchrony does a good job sending out paper statements. My other internet bank accounts are electronic PDF statements that I have to download. Other more esoteric features have to do with usability and user friendliness. Some internet banks like Newtek Bank are aggressively protective in everything they do. My high yield savings account with Newtek Bank is still relatively new, so I'm still figuring them out. They impose transfer amount limitations, they allow only one transfer account, they make me input a verification code every time I log in, even if it is on the same computer. They ask for verifications for almost anything I do with Newtek Bank. At the time I record this video, Newtek Bank pays the best interest rate at a full 5% APY. If you want that 5% APY, you have to put up with some extra hassles with them. Newtek Bank is clearly serious about fraud prevention. These security measures are well intended, but to me, it's a bit excessive and repetitive in several areas. It really sours my willingness to log in and transfer more money in. With Vio Bank, I didn't read carefully when I signed up, but I found out that I had a money market savings account. I need to find out more about whether money market savings accounts is better or not. I haven't gotten a clear answer yet, but I hope to get one soon. My account with Vio Bank is still new, so I'm still learning more about this account. At the time I record this video, they are paying 4.84% APY, but they were at 4.88% APY only 2 weeks ago, so they appear to be more volatile. Now, my account with Primis Bank is also new. It has a sparse online banking options, but the essentials are there. As of this recording, they are paying 4.92% APY. Right now, I am having difficulty setting up new external accounts with them. I'm supposed to call Primis Bank at some point to get a second external account set up, but I am not sure how important it is to me. Again, I have several high-yield accounts at my disposal, so it's not a high priority for me to call them to clear this up to transfer more money in. With my 3 newest accounts, it has been an interesting experience because I'm not accustomed to opening and navigating 3 new accounts at the same time. And I generally don't recommend it for you either for your own sanity. My overall favorite high-yield savings account is currently Bask Bank, based on my familiarity and overall usability. Bask Bank doesn't pay the best anymore. However, they are still doing well by paying a respectable 4.85% APY while still being flexible and user-friendly. Now, at the very bottom of my list in terms of high-yield savings interest rate is Synchrony Bank, which is now paying 4.3% APY. Synchrony's online bank functionality is good. It's easy to use, setting up POD beneficiaries is easy, and Synchrony is well established. But I have many internet bank options that pay much better at the moment. Opening and maintaining several accounts at different internet banks is not something I generally recommend. But I do believe you should have at least 2 internet banks so that you are never dependent on any one bank. The next video I recommend you watch is about why I chose Bask Bank as my favorite high-yield savings account for 2023. As my cat Lexi constantly reminds me, don't forget to swipe that like button to help spread word of this video. And I will see you in my next video.